Anywhere I stopped was home for the night. That's the kind of man I was, a drifter, and my name's Jack. When night fell, I'd find a place to bed down. Come morning, I'd be on the move again. Abandoned cabins, empty warehouses, even flashes of wilderness could be my bed. People frowned upon my ways. I was alien to their neat little normalcy. They dubbed me a lone wolf. Once, I saw a signpost directing me towards a small town named Hollow Creek. There weren't more than 3 or 4 houses, an old church, and a market square. It felt more of a ghost town than a living community. The air was thick with an unusual, silent unease, as if the whole town held its breath. Exploring Hollow Creek was like walking into another realm. Cold, silent, and profoundly unsettling. The houses were vacant, their doors swung helplessly on rusty hinges. The marketplace was devoid of vendors. The only evidence of recent life was an unfinished meal still fresh on a table, flies buzzing around it, and a car idling in the square, its owner nowhere to be seen. In the old church, I found a journal. A bookmarked page spoke of the Phantom Drifter, a dark, twisted apparition causing havoc in the town. Fear soaked every word on the page. On my first night in Hollow Creek, I sensed it, the Phantom Drifter. The wind seemed to recoil at its presence, the air grew dense, and the quiet night was disrupted by the chilling moan of the apparition. A pair of glowing eyes peered at me from the shadows. For a moment, I thought myself a victim of hallucination, exhaustion playing cruel tricks on my mind. Every following night, the ghostly appearances escalated, each encounter more terrifying than the last. Shadows danced menacingly on the walls. I heard the sound of chains dragging on the ground outside the church. Shrill screams echoed from the empty homes. My skepticism sailed away. Fear rooted me. In a quest to understand my phantom assailant, I scoured the abandoned homes for letters, newspaper clippings, or other remnants of the town's past. The story was the same everywhere. A lonely wanderer like myself came to Hollow Creek seeking rest and was unjustly accused of a series of crimes. Fearful, the people of Hollow Creek murdered him. His wraith returned, consumed by vengeance, haunting the town until all its inhabitants fled. The Phantom Drifter was a mirror image of me, his fate a sharp warning of what I could become, a phantom doomed to wander the empty streets forever. I could not bear the thought of leaving the Phantom Drifter to his cursed eternity. I decided to stand before him, loss to loss, misfit to misfit, even if it meant risking my life. Underneath the gibbous moon, I summoned the Phantom with a trembling voice. Fury radiated off him as he appeared, chains rattling like chilling music of the night. I held my ground despite the horrifying spectacle. I told him of my findings, of my understanding of his plight. With the town's forgotten voices echoing around us, I apologized. But words alone felt inadequate. I promised to bring Hollow Creek's ugliest secret to light, to make sure his story gets heard. The Phantom Drifter didn't respond, but the suffocating darkness began to lift. The ghost's burning eyes stared at me for a moment before he melted into the mist, finally laid to rest. A strange calm settled on Hollow Creek, and for the first time, the wind did not seem to be holding its breath. As dawn lit up the sky, I left the now peaceful town carrying more than my bag and scars, a tale of injustice, a duty to echo a lost soul's story. A sense of purpose I had long forgotten gripped me. My wanderings had a new shade, a mission. Silent towns and bustling cities, fading day and eerie night, passing seasons and relentless distances, all became pages as I wrote the tale of the Phantom Drifter. A lone wanderer, I am, but one with a story. The story of a revengeful ghost of a tiny town called Hollow Creek, of a Phantom Drifter, and maybe, just perhaps, of myself too.
Call me Andy. 5 years of wandering, and I still feel the thrill of seeing an unfamiliar horizon, of hearing the crunch of gravel under my boots as I tread unknown paths. Freedom lies at the heart of a drifter's life. No bonds, no boundaries, just roads stretching out into the infinity of solitude. Late one afternoon, my path led me to an abandoned village, hidden away in the creases of an ancient valley. My intuition told me it was the perfect shelter for the night. On closer scrutiny, the village was like a lost piece of time cast aside. Homes stood forlorn, doors ajar. There was an eerie quietude, a sense of sudden abandonment permeated the air. Scattered remnants of domesticity created an uncanny tableau. Dinner tables, set as if expecting diners, personal trinkets haphazardly scattered. Against my better judgment, I chose a dwelling for the night. An unsettling feeling gnawed at me, but I brushed it off as nothing more than the chill wind whispering ancient tales. Halfway through the night, soft whispers crawled into my ears. When I tried tracing them, the echoes led me in circles. The night felt alive with ghostly presence. Eyes seemed to follow me from the shadows. Simultaneously terrifying and intriguing, they encouraged my inner investigator. On my nocturnal exploration, I noticed something more chilling. The walls of multiple homes bragged dark symbols painted in blood, a macabre artwork. I felt an unseen stigma in the village that was deeply unnerving. In one of the cottages, I discovered aged, brittle journals, the kind only time can forge. They revealed ghastly stories of the village's past, terrors manifesting as an evil entity that had tormented the villagers into an exodus. I was skeptical at first, but the relentless, eerie happenings began to connect the threads, leading to a shroud of dark knowledge I wasn't keen on unearthing. Phantom threats started to become more tangible, the entity revealing itself in ways more terrifying than I could imagine. Mirrors showed distorted specters and unearthly cries echoed, resonating within my mind. Strangest of all, every road I took to escape led me back to the center of the village, an inescapable labyrinth of horror. The entity began reaching out to me, offering an apparent escape. It wanted a duel of fears. Like a nightmarish game, it demanded I confront my most profound dread. Driven by sheer desperation, I accepted. A maelstrom of psychological terror engulfed me. I started seeing terrifying visions, shadows of lost souls, eerie figures lurking in every corner. The chilling sounds grew louder, an incessant orchestration of my worst fears. Phantom sensations overcame my reality as the chilling breezes started to resemble the deathly touch of the entity's cold hand. The entity's real test was the final face-off, a duel between its monstrous manifestation and my will to survive. I rallied my courage, tapping into my wisdom, and I stood firm against its reign of terror, refusing to be petrified by the gruesome ordeal. As dawn broke, my nightmare ceased abruptly. The village seemed to release its ghostly grip. The entity appeared to honor its promise. I escaped. With a shaky breath of relief, I left the haunting memories and continued my journey on the open road. Checking my backpack later that day, I found something unrecognizable, a small, ancient talisman that I certainly hadn't packed. An involuntary shudder ran down my spine. The link, it seemed, was not completely severed. My life as a drifter is fraught with the exhilaration of unknown risks, one that continues to draw me into its irresistible thrill. The haunting memory of that village serves as a silent promise to remember, to survive, and to keep moving. The drifter's life of solace and freedom may be tainted with shadows of terror, but it's my path, my destiny, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Ever since I can remember, I possessed a nomadic spirit, a drifter traversing the country, spending my nights under a ceiling of stars, and my days wandering through towns as unassuming as their residents who seldom seemed to notice my existence. Markets, motels, streets, parks, they were my home. However, lately, I started feeling a pair of eyes on me, watching, following. No matter where I went, their gaze seemed to pierce through me, making the most mundane of things sinister. On a foggy afternoon, I found myself at the entrance of an eerily silent town called Midnight Hollow. It was as if the mute button had been pushed on life itself. the townsfolk wandered quietly, wearing vacant expressions that added to the unsettling aura of the town. An old man, hunched with age, warned me in a hushed tone to stay clear of the North Lane. Intrigued and slightly alarmed, I nodded, dismissing it as a result of superstitious town talk. Come nightfall, my curiosity got the best of me, leading me down the silent pathway to the forbidden North Lane. Rows of derelict houses lined the lane, staring back at me with their empty, hollowed-out eyes. Suddenly, I heard hushed whispers seeping from within the rotting wooden slats. Phantasmal figures flitted here and there, stifling my breath and making my pulse race. Among the abandoned row was one house that stood taller, darker, like a shadow one cannot escape. Its mystery lured me in, its doors creaking open to a world that was frozen in a bygone era. Dust-covered portraits of a family unknown, strange objects of the past lay forgotten. Then came the supernatural that shook me to my core. Shadows darting, phantom fingers grazing my skin, and screams that echoed off the moldy walls, menacing and petrifying. From the deafening silence emerged an apparition, the forlorn figure of a young girl in white, her hollow eyes pooling with untold stories. Slowly she unveiled the tragic tale of her family's gruesome death. An accident, screams, and then silence, their spirits forever confined within the very house they once called home. I understood now why Midnight Hollow carried the shroud of dread, streets echoing the mournful wails of its spectral inhabitants. Before the echo of the tale dimmed within the darkened walls, I made an attempt to leave, only to discover the doors jammed. Fear crawled up my spine. My little haven now turned into a trap. The spirits turned hostile, their wails louder and their movements more unnerving. With every passing moment, the veil over the gory history of the house lifted, the whispers growing angrier, and their manifestations more terrifying. But the drifter in me was a survivalist too. Barely dodging their violent rage, I managed to escape the haunting house, clambering into the silent streets of Midnight Hollow. I woke up, drenched in cold sweat, white sheets of the hospital bed wrapped around me. The whispers persisted, only this time in hushed undertones of nurses and doctors, each tale echoing the last. Lane, spirits, drifters, all voices spun into one, all joining in collective fear and relief. I was part of the statistics now, another drifter lured and barely alive. It was time to leave Midnight Hollow then, the town of lost souls. The road again welcomed me, but coming far didn't mean leaving it all behind. A chilling sensation persisted. The feeling of being watched lingered, etching an icy path down my spine. Glancing at the rearview mirror, I felt my heart skip a beat. The reflection wasn't just mine anymore. The same spectral girl peered at me, her eyes as hollow as before. Midnight Hollow was more than a town then. It was a memory, a ghost, a haunting I was yet to escape. The haunting lanes of Drifter were far from done, their tale far from over, their curse far from lifted.